when you turn the volume down on the pain, the volume gets turned down everywhere. It's not like you cannot feel your pain and then go have amazing joy. So when you actually don't want to feel these things, you actually turn down the volume on all aspects of life. We're talking about going from survival to living. French fries, survival. Vegetables, living. Talking, really discussing what's in your heart, living. Gossiping, survival.
I like that.
Rumi's whole teachings, Hafiz's teachings, these were like art forms offered. How do you live, not how do you survive? And you can survive on $1 billion or live on $40,000 and vice versa. When you turn that down, I don't want to feel this pain. We push it away. Literally everything else, the joy also gets turned down. Emotional pain is the same. If you pay attention to it, which is, again, sit with it. We're not talking about wallowing in it. We're not talking about getting lost in it. If just to sit there, be like, I thought I was fine. Louise asked me how I'm doing, and I realized this tightness in my chest or this anger, or it actually starts shifting, right? All it needs is being recognized.
Okay, welcome everybody. Welcome to the Awakening Process 101 podcast. And in this podcast, we discuss things like spirituality, emotional health, healing, and the true meaning of awakening in the context of our modern lives. Our goal is to spark insight and plant seeds for you on your path to awakening by sharing our own experiences and what worked and what didn't. And we hope that our conversations will serve as a roadmap, hoping that our stories will encourage you to think outside the box, shift your perspective, and view life as lessons of learning and awakening. My name is Pernilla Burke, and I am the founder and creator of Awakening 101, an online spiritual resource. I'm here with my best friend, Louise Juel, Buddhist and yoga teacher. And today we have a special guest back again, Abdi Assadi. He is a healer, acupuncturist, and a spiritual counselor. And we're so happy that he's here with us. And today we are going to continue what we talked about last week, which was this idea that we are running from pain. Louise and I talked about it and explored it a little bit on our own, but we really would like to hear from Abdi because he has way, way, way more experience than we do. And so we begin there.
But let's start by inviting Abdi to running from pain. And I'm just curious, like when you hear that sentence, what's passing through your mind at that moment?
I feel it's autobiography, and I feel it's like every person that I treat for 40 years. Because my experience of all of us is we just keep mobilized and we keep busy because we're so frightened all the time of pain. And, everyone has different layers and different amounts of emotional pain. And the way the culture is run now, it's so designed to keep busy nonstop. And then the second part of that becomes, as the saying goes, what you resist persists. So the more we run away from the pain, not only does it stay, it actually amplifies. It's like a bad mortgage. It's adjustable rate mortgage. So the more you don't pay, the more screwed you are. So
the interest rate keeps going up and you're like, I'm never going to be able to pay this thing back.
Beautiful. So that's my 2 cents. I love how you guys bring me out. It's like I'm that old turtle that you bring out whenever there's like here's a painful topic. Let's bring out the old turtle.
Turtle, that's like a weird thing. Yeah.
Turtles are old.
Just to continue on what you said there, thank you. So why do we run from pain?
So we are not really taught, right? A lot of this stuff is learned behavior. We're not taught. I mean, our parents really didn't know how to sit with pain. Our grandparents really didn't know. So it's learned behavior. And then culture is a reflection of all of our psyches and unconscious. So that gets reflected back. So our obsession with being entertained, our obsession with Netflix, our obsession with food, and it can be things that are quote unquote healthy, right? Our obsession with exercise. The intention has to always be examined, right? And people think there's something they have to do with pain. All that pain needs is acknowledgement. It needs to be heard and tolerated. Nothing else. It doesn't need to be negated. It doesn't need to be fixed. It doesn't need to be argued with. It just needs to be sat with. And with that, the medicine is actually in the being present with it.
Yeah. But if we bring it back, you said it has with our society and going back to our parents and ancestors, like if you bring it all the way back to the cave people, like when there were no Panadol, there was no,
Netflix. There was no Netflix.
No, but they still had, I always think of one of my favorite poems is Rumi. He writes about to be a human. He writes about the guest house, and that's from the 12th century. And it impresses me that we can use a poem today that was written so far away, so many years ago, and we can still, being a human at that time, our surrounding has changed, but we as a human being has not changed. We have still one heart, two lungs, hopefully. I'm just thinking, if you bring it all the way back, how would you define it? Where does it come from?
It's very interesting. One of my pet sort of enjoyments is reading journals from people that lived in the 12th century, 13th century, 14th century. Man, it was a different life. People had a lot more time just to hang out and chill. So we have this idea that, oh my God, people were just dying and stuff. It was like people actually hung. People were very creative. People had a lot of downtime. So first off of just that, as someone who's practiced for 40 years, I can tell you, the level that people are running now is 180 miles an hour. 40 years ago, maybe it was like 60, 70.
Yeah.
So there's a difference just in my own lifetime. So just the speed at which we move, that alone becomes problematic because there's no room. But to your point, absolutely, we're the same beings, but we don't have any downtime. Like when I look at the average person that I talk to, look at you two as mothers, right? You have your personal life, you have to deal with your own psyche, and then you have children that you have to deal with, and partners, then work. It really is a real handful. I doubt Rumi was running around dropping his daughters at soccer practice and this and that, and like there's a level of like nonstop behavior, and it's not examined, so it just keeps piling on top of it.
What I have so many questions, but first of all, like what comes to me is that it's a catch-22. Our culture feeds into the running, and then we run, so it becomes like a loop, right? And if you say that we need to examine so if you have a patient who's doing this and it's affecting their accumulation of neurosis, whatever you want to call it, like a stored emotion that needs to be solved, what are some of the, like, how do you, because the three of us are not part of the norm, right? We've been meditating and doing yoga and spiritual practices, and this is our life, how to figure these things out. But what are some of the steps that when we start noticing, how do you get to being aware that you're doing this?
So pain knocks on your door and gets louder and louder.
Right.
We cannot bring somebody and make them do anything. So first of all, it's a very personal thing. At some point, the pain gets so intense that you have to pay attention to it. The ability to shut that down is profound. You never are going to underestimate the abject terror we have. And the terror we have is because we've never sat with it. So it feels very, very overwhelming. So part of it is just literally in the moment. Like anytime people, like when you come home and you want to turn on the radio, the TV and music, for me, it's like, what am I feeling? How was my day? It's seconds. It's not like you have to, again, become this heavy duty thing. Oh my God, today I need to deal with my pain. It's not that. It's a matter of like, we know, three of us, not just because of our practice, we know there are times when things are off. But when you ask the average person, they also do know something before go ahead.
They do. Yeah.
We always know, because you know when you are opening the fridge or turning on the TV, when it's like, I'm actually hungry, or like, I just want to shove something down. It's a very subtle but not so subtle thing. When you're really excited to watch a piece of art or a movie, when it's like, wow, I'm really interested, or just it goes on and you're clicking the channels like a robot, eyes roll back in your head. And Pernilla doesn't know what we're talking about.
No.
It's a sense of ease that we have to actually become friends with. I was sitting with this the last couple of days thinking about our conversation today. One thing, like, people will be like, I just want to get on with my life. One thing that is very hard to appreciate, when you turn the volume down on the pain, the volume gets turned down everywhere. It's not like you cannot feel your pain and then go have amazing joy. So when you actually don't want to feel these things, you actually turn down the volume on all aspects of life. It's not like you can just dim one room, leave the pain there, and go in the other room. There's a master thermostat. When you turn that down, I don't want to feel this pain, we push it away. Literally everything else, the joy also gets turned down. So people always
So
ask me, like,
it's like you flatline your emotional state.
well said. You flatline your emotional state. So people do say to me a lot of times in therapy, like, I don't want to feel this stuff. Why the hell does one do this? Well, the point is, when you do this here, you also turn it down everywhere. So as you sit with it, and again, it's not some heavy duty thing. I'm not saying if you have trauma, yes, therapy. I'm saying just a simple act of just sitting and asking, what am I feeling? It's amazing how we actually don't know how we're feeling, right? The thing that I always talk about, I think we even talked about last time, when patients come to me, I'm like, how are you? I'm great. Now, how are you doing? I'm good. How are you doing? And then, it comes up. And, it's not that people are maliciously malintent towards self. They actually don't know. We don't know how we are. So that when you say ruling 12th
and also
century.
I think it's like also the lack of having the ability to ask ourselves that throughout life.
Mm-hmm.
That's a question that I've always answered with, I'm fine.
Mm-hmm.
Always.
Everyone
and no
does.
one really asked that, like, in the 80s. So, and also because I don't want the other person to ask me, I don't want to have that question. I think it's an annoying question. How are you?
Sure.
Great.
Yes, and also people don't really care. So the other thing is also in my experience is like, how are you? If I'm like, oh my God, I just went through this thing. Just like, okay, anyway, moving on, So
But it's also
there's
funny
also
because
that.
you mentioned time. That's why we're running, and that's why we don't feel the pain, and we don't have time to listen to the other person. So if I ask you how you're doing, and say, well, actually, I'm not doing that well. I don't really have time to listen. I'm already gone. But that's a lot of. I mean, I refer a little bit to the French language where you say "ça va" and you respond "ça va." It's like, we don't need to talk about it. It's a polite gesture. I see you, but I don't really care about you. Or maybe I do care about you, but I don't really have time right now.
100%. But to your point, also people don't have time because they don't have time for self. So you're 100% correct. But also, if I'm asking you, how are you? I haven't sat with my pain. If you start telling me about your pain and I'm a foreigner to my own pain, that's going to freak me out. So I've had that experience where during my therapy in my younger years, I was like, oh, practice being open. And instead of saying fine, I'd be like, say something heavy, and you could just see the glaze coming. And it was like, look, man, I just asked you're fine. You're supposed to answer I'm fine. Not like, give me a goddamn thing of how, I don't care how you're feeling, because that makes me feel what I'm feeling. I don't want to feel what I'm feeling, right? It's more than busyness. There's a level when we're honest in that moment. So then you have your chosen few that actually
So then you come to the authentic self, right? That people are not authentic. People are actually having a false self, pretending that.
So to get to the authentic self, and that term is thrown around very willy-nilly. It's incredibly a brave thing to do, because authentic self means then the false self, which was designed to get love, it's a terrible love. It's like eating saccharin. It's not even real sugar. It's some toxic thing. But to be authentic self is an incredibly brave. It's the heroine or heroic journey where we have to really just give zero fucks about what external is. You have to be a very developed internal sense of self, right? And in reality, this pain experience is an internal thing. People can't even hold their pain. How are they going to hold your pain? So you start first holding your pain, and then you start choosing more wisely friends and lovers and all that. But yes, we're in a culture where everyone's sleepwalking, right?
Yeah.
Now, here's something very interesting about pain. I've talked about this before. When I started working as a healer very early on, part of what I did for a while, I used to commute from New York to Pennsylvania, which was the state-of-art biofeedback clinic for incredible pain. These are people who had like car accidents, had fallen off scaffolding, like incredible, like spinal injuries, like physical pain.
Okay.
So one thing, thank you. So physical pain, which also, of course, then would get into depression, but there's a pain scale to clinically 0 to 10. So this really weird thing, which is very counterintuitive, which applies to what we're talking about today. So if people were at pains were 9s and 10s, which is very rare clinically, that's a very intense pain. Morphine doesn't help, nothing helps. If you got the people, if you taught them some body awareness, right? These people were immobile, so they couldn't even do yoga or anything like that. If you got them to feel their body, their pain would come down a couple of points on a scale in one session. So if this person has spinal injury, you go, okay, like now feel your body, feel your hands, feel your feet. And the initial part is like, I don't want to feel this. This is too painful. But if you got them to go into that, they go from the sympathetic nervous system into a more relaxation parasympathetic, and their pain would come down a couple of points on the graph. Emotional pain is the same. If you pay attention to it, which is, again, sit with it. We're not talking about wallowing in it. We're not talking about getting lost in it. If just to sit there, be like, I thought I was fine. Louisa asked me how I'm doing, and I realized this tightness in my chest, or this anger, or it actually starts shifting, right? All it needs is being recognized.
Mm-hmm.
Like truth sets you free. The truth of the emotional body also sets you free.
So this is so interesting, Abdi, because we've been talking about the breath through the nose and feeling your feet, and that just for sort of like emotional, spiritual relaxation. But I didn't actually know that this also works for physical pain.
Mm-hmm.
And so basically, body just being aware of the placement of the pain or any part of the body. Is that, like, am I saying this right? Because I'm just trying to understand specifically.
So remember, we started the conversation by talking about how we run away from pain. To run away from pain, you need to mobilize. So the words that I always use, right? Mobilize. What I mean by mobilize. Mobilize is you're in your head, you're thinking. The body can't distinguish between thought and process. So what you're doing is by mobilizing yourself, you're in the sympathetic nervous system. Sympathetic nervous system is fight or flight. Some people say freeze, but the fight or flight really describes it nicely. In that state was designed to survive an attack by a lion, right? It would be on for a couple of minutes and then you'd go down. Talking about Rumi, 12th century. Now what's happening is that system is on all day long. The first thing you do is you pick up your phone, so already you kicked it in. So we're in that sympathetic nervous system overdrive. Insomnia is one of the biggest problems that any healer deals with in the last, let's say, 10, 15 years. Why? Because the phones, everything. So we have all these sort of gadgets at our disposal now that keep you in that sympathetic nervous system. And also you pick it up because you're in emotional pain. And sometimes it's not even like, oh my God, I'm in so much pain. If you haven't slowed down for a month, for 3 months, for 4 months, your nervous system, it's so in that wired state that you have even no idea. It doesn't have to just to be like, oh, a divorce, my ex just did this, my friend just did this. It gets into such a base level that you're not even dropping down enough just the body for 2 seconds to be right? If you look at mechanics, a car, if you run it for 3 hours, 10 days, it overheats. It uses way too much fuel. That's the image to work with.
Can I just come with a little example here? Because I had migraine since I was 4, and it became much better with the age. But I did an experience twice when I had, and I took so many pills for my migraine. And about 5 years ago, when I started working with them, with the body therapy and everything, I got this migraine. It was really, really bad. And for the first time, I went into the pain. I went straight into the pain. And I had tried to do it maybe 2 times before, but I couldn't. And the third time, I could really go into the pain. And in that moment, when I came into the pain disappeared. I was so focused. I was so in that. And it was almost like the light was open up. And in the moment I got distracted, the pain came back.
That's amazing.
Exactly.
So that's literally what I was talking about. Now, just a little side note on migraines. Obviously there's food allergies involved with it. There's genetic predisposition. But one of the amazing things about migraines that blow my mind, 40 years of treating it still blows my mind. It's one of those things when people get it, it's literally like you're going to die. And then the second it lifts, there's no physiological damage that was recorded by it. So this really genius thing that the body does to shut you down, to just get you so stuck in the moment, especially if you have the light sensitivity or the auras. And then the second it lifts, there's literally no physiological damage. So it's a very genius adaptive version of just like slowing you the fuck down because you got no choice. But of course, then we get back on and a loop happens. So it's migraine is one of those things that always blows my mind.
So Louise, can you use that technique these days?
No, I do.
Or was that like
no, but I used it also when I got the year before COVID came. I got the flu for the first time, like the really bad flu, like when you feel like you're almost going to die. and that physical. And I think we need to come back to that, because I want to also ask into the physical pain comparing to the emotional pain. But now we tapped into the physical pain. But I think that yes, I use it not every time, but because it requests that I do need to have a little, not present, but I need to have
Present.
that little energy and the willingness to really take the time to do it. Again, the time. Because of course it would be easier for me to just get a migraine pill and go down and sleep. And then I wake up and I feel a bit groggy, but I'm okay,
So two things here. First of all, it's not a time issue. I appreciate we don't have time. It's an anxiety issue. We can, Pernilla and me talk about this. We've talked about this with you, Louisa, 2-3 minutes a day. Everybody can give 2-3 minutes a day. It's more than that. It's an anxiety one has to tolerate to go through it, to push through it. The second point is, like you were saying, physical pain, emotional pain. Unpaid attention to emotional pain will 1,000% become physical at some point, right? If it's rage, if it's grief, if it's, deep states that we don't want to deal with, it will have to come through the body. There's 3 things we do with both emotional and physical pain. One is repress it. The other is to act it out. The third, again, is that we don't feel it. And the feeling is the only thing that actually brings the healing on. And like I said earlier, the healing, now you might go to therapy or you might do specific meditation practices. You just have to just sit with it. It's incredible, just that aha moment of like, oh, I'm really sad. I want to kill my ex. My throat is really tight. I feel so much grief. I feel helpless. Another big one. Just that part, because the little boy, little girl inside just needs to be told, you're not crazy. What you're feeling is real. Right? We've always been negated, right? People start crying. I'm sure you've all had this experience when you see people, stop crying. Why are you crying?
Well,
It's just
that's more common than not.
Yeah. And it's such a fascist thing to do to a child. It's such an unbelievably cruel thing. Now, why is that? Because to our point earlier in the beginning, if we don't feel our pain or can tolerate our pain, immediately our reaction is going to be to shut it down on someone else. It's very common in relationships. You're always crying, or you're always angry, or
for me, I grew up in a home where there was a lot of emotion, so I always felt like it was sort of annoying and in the way and overwhelming. And I noticed that in the beginning of AA, when people were like, you should have a sponsee, and I was like, oh no, that's just way too much work, because they would have emotions, and I'd be like, I gotta go.
So to your point, now when you say there's a lot of emotions, so that can actually fall into the 3 categories I was saying. If people are just exploding or that's actually not what we're talking about here. No. That actually becomes the first category of not dealing with emotions. You're always just in that mode. You're in the loop. So we're not talking about stuck in a loop. We're not talking about repression. They're the same thing. There are people who are raised in a household where no one has any emotions. It's all intellectual. That's the same kind of gulag as where my experience, again, like as someone whose mother was always emotional. That wasn't emotions. That was someone in their trauma that wasn't healed. That was always emoting as a way of not healing. So just to have that clarification.
Whew.
Yeah, start nice and light, 6 a.m. Yes, that's how we roll.
So I have. Where did I write this question? Oh, so we talk about downtime, right? And you were saying, like in the 1200s, you were reading these journals, and there's a lot of downtime. And I'm like, and then I was like, what is downtime? Because even for me, like this, like being versus doing, you never just, and we talked about this before, me and Louise, but like, what is it that people do during downtime in the 1200s? They just sat there?
They sat there, creativity. People like, or just literally just hanging out with their kids or their animals, or just staring out the window. As someone who's like in his 60s now, I remember in the 80s when I lived in Lower East Side or in Harlem, like I would have, I was studying, I was going to grad school, I was working in these clinics, I would have like these hours where I would just sit and look at a magazine. I remember being in East Harlem, like, I love motorcycles. I would just sit there. Like I had to really reintroduce an aspect of sitting there for an hour, not 10 minutes, not 15 minutes. I didn't have a TV because I realized at a young age that TV is just poison on the level that it would really come into my brain and do something that didn't feel good. I would sit there and stay there. I remember like in Harlem, at 4 in the afternoon, there'd be this beautiful light that would come through the window. And even though there were gunshots going outside, once it would get dark, I would enjoy the sunshine before. I was like, they're very specific being in a moment. And it was like so gorgeous. But I had this little red carpet, my little carpet I still have. The light would hit it a certain way. So my meditation wasn't to sit and meditate, was just to sit there and just watch the sun slowly move. And it's the middle of an urban setting. I'm not sitting in the country like I am now. So it's really training yourself to see these little bits of beauty. And it's incredible how these things are simple. They're free. It doesn't cost anything. So it's these moments.
I mean, I'm starting to feel the same way about the kitchen and the cooking. And it's just, if it's frantic, of course, it's not that.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like if I step in, like, I'll schedule, I'll be like, the dinner has to be ready at 5:30, and I'll start like at 4.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful.
And just like
beautiful
dilly dally and put, and I feel like it's like, it gives me so much space. And that's when then I find joy in this simple act.
Yeah, the slowing down is really powerful. Again, Louisa, you guys are both really great because you both talk about that there's no time. And absolutely, I get it. I don't have kids, but I'm around enough kids. I have a God kid. I know what it takes to be in that mode. But I'm saying even with that, we're not talking about hours here. We're talking like you can carve up 10 minutes.
Being present.
You can carve up 10
because,
minutes.
I mean, that's, now I'm just looking at my schedule, just to run through the day. And I'm thinking but I'm thinking about people being single moms like I am today. And I mean, it's beautiful that you have that much time, Pernilla, for cooking. But I mean, that's a huge privilege. Trust me. But no, not every day. But
not every day.
I'm going up very, very early, sending kids to school, teaching, picking up from school, have to do grocery, have to drive to the barn, have to go to the soccer game, pick up from the barn, go. They're going to come home at 9:30 tonight. And then I have not, but I have the point A to B when I'm driving from here to school. So that's my awareness of knowing, okay, I'm just here in the car. I'm just sitting, I'm driving and trying to be present, and I can feel that is nurturing. But that's how most of the days look like, So I think that my question to you, Abdi, when you were looking at the beautiful light coming in, and in your young age, were you aware of being present in that moment, or were you just sitting, chilling? Because I think people do chill today. When you see old people in France sitting with a cafe, but they're not aware of it.
I don't see people chilling. So I do not see that. So my experience as a clinician, someone who's been in an urban area, is people wake up. Once they're up, their phones is in their hands. That's not chilling. They go into unconscious mode. And they also pack every second. So I appreciate for you as a single mother. I work with a lot of single mothers. I have friends who are single mothers. I appreciate the insanity of that. But I would say as a single mother to you, your day starts that 3 minutes that you spend in the morning. Whether if you shower in the morning or brush your teeth.
Exactly.
That brushing your teeth becomes your practice. That is when you slow down. And then if you're driving or taking a subway to take the kids somewhere, that 3 minutes, 5 minutes, you use that time. But what do? We get on the thing and the newspaper comes out or the phone comes out. And, we're never, this thing builds on itself. It's a very unconscious, addictive thing, right?
So it's interesting because, like, I rather ride the subway in New York all the time. And I'm always observing what everybody's doing in the subway car. Because, like, are we all on our phones or are we all doing something else? And, like, there are days when I see people, like, their whole subway car, everybody is just sitting and, like, they've put away their phones.
That's amazing.
And that's, like, when I see that, I'm like, in all ages too.
That's amazing. Beautiful. Tell me what line you take, because I've never been on that line, but that's amazing. Because I should take that line.
No, but it doesn't happen all the time. But it just fascinates me when it does happen, because I'm like, what age are you when you do that? Where you come from, like everything. And because, we had the subway for years and no one had anything to do on the subway.
I remember So back in the day, people either read a book or had the paper in their hand, and other people sat and tried to not make eye contact so they don't get their teeth knocked out. But it's really, So part of the speed of what's happening, it is like drugs, like when you start doing drugs and then you want to be high all the time. That's what's happening in culture right now. Now, to your point, I agree. I feel there's a point where people are banging their heads and are so exhausted. But we have to tolerate anxiety. My experience when I see someone, they want to come for acupuncture, and the 2 seconds before they come into the room, they're finishing that phone call and doing this. I get it. We're busy, but it's more than that. There's a level of desperation, anxiety, and you can feel it. You can feel when someone's finishing a business call. You can feel when they're going to fill in that 3 seconds before they walk into the room.
Yeah.
It's a feeling.
But I guess it's still, is it just that we've sped up our leveling of anxiety and loop because of the internet and the social media? I mean, what is it that made it even worse now?
So the anxiety's always been there. Obviously, the stuff that's going around, you live in a culture where the media by design has to make you anxious so you consume more. There's that piece. And the more you get disconnected from yourself, the more anxious you're going to get. So what we're talking about here is not like, oh, go deal with your anxiety. The disconnection from always being distracted will make you more anxious, right? So if I tell you try to relax, how can you do that when you're having a panic attack?
What are you talking about?
Yeah. But when I say spend a couple of minutes to literally feel your body, again, to your point, Louise, of like, I don't have time. We're talking to take those little, like 3 times a day for 2 minutes. Here's an exercise for people, right? When you wake up and you brush your teeth, don't pick up the phone right away. Watch before the mind goes. Literally 2 minutes when you're having your lunch. Like meals are a great time for that. So most of us are, shove foods down and we're running around. Just take your time for 2 seconds. No one breathes. So breathing is not a part of this thing. You catch yourself, your breath is up in your throat. Yeah, you're in anxiety, sympathetic nervous overdrive. So we're not talking about walking around that's Bodhidharma with the mother of 2 or 3. We're talking like in the midst of that chaos,
I think
create that still point.
I think, sorry.
But Louise, I don't think, sorry, but I don't think that you, sorry, I interrupted you, but I don't think that, I think that the awareness piece that you have makes you not be a person that's like kind of running from pain. Like I feel like because you have awareness in that car ride and awareness of your incredibly busy schedule, it's like you don't really fall into the category
that's why I brought
just
it
you're
up.
just
I
running
know.
away
I mean,
from
I
it.
have my daily. I mean, I do have 20. I have my daily practice that I have for over 20 years. So I'm not in that category, but I'm comparing to. I mean, my day as it is today. I'm not in pain of it, and I'm not stressed for it. I'm kind of looking forward to it, but that's because I have my practice. So I mean, but I'm thinking of the people that do not have that practice, people that are not aware, because I think that due to me being very present and aware, then of course I get fueled in the small moments. But then maybe we should ask, but how can we be present
that's a good,
in those small minutes? Now you mentioned brushing the teeth, for example, which I also say to my clients and say, you have everything. You have the smell, you have the taste, you have the movement. Try to just be in it, And also when you do the dish ups, you have the same thing. And people are very happy for those 2 minutes. But when you are not aware of it, and if you're not taught how to do it, then it's a long way to get there.
Yeah, well, it's definitely a long way. So we don't need to kind of jump around this. Yeah, it's work. But first of all, you can never get other people. We have to practice ourselves. The 20 minutes a day is profound. A lot of people are not going to do that because they're just going to have a panic attack and then jump out the window. So my thing is like, even if you have the 20 minutes, if you practice 20 minutes a day, I learned this being a clinician with biofeedback and really getting clinical data back from what people are doing. The 20 minutes is fantastic. The person that does whatever meditation for 20 minutes is going to be less stressed at 10 p.m. if they're doing it at 7 a.m. But the person, whether or not they do that 20 minutes, have 3 or 4 times a day check in with their body. And we're talking about awareness, not even that you have to do the deep breathing. Just feel your body. Just feel like one of the things we do as pushing away pain is we tighten our musculature. Our chin goes out. Our jaws are tight. If you just have this awareness of like, just literally we're talking, yeah, exactly, Lisa, just stretching and just feeling, that makes such a big difference, right? And again, this thing of like, we talk about people is like, it's a self-practice. And then another thing is, which is what a lot of our teachers have taught us, but it's very real, I can't control other people, but if I drop into the state, I've had this experience. You know, when I used to work with very traumatized people, or when I would do martial arts training with these like elite, you know, SWAT team guys, like they're like these wired guys. And if I walked in from this energy and I constantly check myself, they would relax.
Yeah.
When I'm with
They're holding the space.
You're holding space by being present. So what it was with AIDS patients, what it was with highly traumatized soldiers, what it was with highly traumatized women who came from these horrific backgrounds of abuse, with these men who were psychopaths. If I just, because, you know, we're also empaths. So most people who do the most running, they're very sensitive. So they go up and out as a way of not feeling their pain. So if I gave the gift to myself of like, let me just drop in and not go into their, being sympathetic to their pain in my body, they could relax.
It affects them.
It affects them. So it's a very real thing.
So I just want to, I just want to sort of like think about the benefits, or what happens if we continue in this. So like the question one would be like, what happens if you just keep on doing this? And what are the benefits if we ask ourselves these questions and take these moments to create awareness throughout the day?
You
Because
become
we
more
want to know, like,
youthful. You become more youthful. You get to drive a really nice car, and then you get really rich. Oh no, sorry, that was the wrong workshop.
I take that one too. I take
that was
that one.
that was
I
a
take that
manifestation workshop.
too.
That's really funny. That's how it's sold in America today. What
Yeah.
happens is you become free, and you become your own drummer, and you're not at the mercy of external forces. And this life goes really quick. You actually get to taste things. So, of course, all of us have had this experience. You know, when things are easy with your work or with your kids, things are easy. Yeah, that's great. But that's still external forces. What happens is you start a little bit disconnecting from being jerked around by everything that's off outside. So if you work with some,
you're not living
you're internally
on instinct.
On instinct. And what is instinct? Instinct becomes a driving force when you don't feel safe at a young age, and then you're constantly in the mercy of external forces. So another word that I've used with you before is being internally referent as opposed to externally referent. So it's not a cure-all. I mean, we've all had fears, let's say, around our health, around money, around relationships, but you do pull back a certain modicum of your own agency into yourself. So you become more internally referent. Right? I mean, of course, it's nice when things are easy in life, but as the experience goes, it's not like that. So you take care of your little child internally.
Yeah. And then you have a choice.
Yes.
How do you react?
Yes. So that's beautiful what you're saying. So this is really important too. Most of us are reactive. We don't have that bandwidth in the middle, right? So this also gives you a little bit of room not to be in that reactive mode. So when a person bumps into you in a subway and you're not ready to kill them, you can get a little bit and go, oh, this is not personal. Like, you don't take the world personally is another way of saying it. When you're reactive, everything becomes personal because your nervous system is so taut now, it's so tight that every little thing makes you go into this berserker mode, as opposed to having a little bit of room in the middle where you're not going to become immediately reactive. And we all have that experience, right? When you're in a dropped-in space, the world seems easier externally. It's really wild how that happens.
Because we step into some sort of flow. You know, we're not resisting every moment that's coming towards us.
Beautiful. Yeah. So flow is, again, another way of saying that the center comes back inside. Now, we're human. We got to make room for the fact that we're wounded and it's stressful and we don't have time to scratch our head. I appreciate all that. But we're talking about this in that world, and not some world where you move to some Shangri-La and are disconnected from the world, right? But what I'm sharing with you here is very direct experience of people in the world. This is not about being a Zen master on top of a mountain and, we're talking about being here while it's here.
Yeah. No, because what you said was like, if you meditate 20 minutes at 7 a.m., at 10 p.m., you're going to be feeling better. I mean, that's really what we're trying. That's the message that we're saying here today, is that like, just if it's like you take these moments throughout the day, or brushing your teeth or whatever it is, just one thing, right? It always starts with one small thing.
Yes.
And then you notice that there's a shift in that one thing that you're doing, and then you can grow from there.
Yes. But so two things. So yes. Remember the other piece of that. If you do the 20 minutes and then check in when Louise is driving to the soccer practice to pick or drop off. If you then take another 30 seconds, feel the steering wheel in your hand. Watch your posture because you're a little late and you're sitting on the edge of the seat. Sit back, actually. Drop the energy down. So that makes it even more. And the other thing is people never make room for this. When you start feeling better, a part of you is going to want to stop because it's foreign, right? If you're starving all the time and you have a nice meal, it's like actually it's foreign, so you might not even finish your meal. So part of it is tolerating ease. Tolerating ease is so counterintuitive. Oh my God, it's a thing. You know, people start, I want to exercise, and they go really good 2 days, and then they tear something or they sprain something. So part of it is, I'm out of shape. Part of it is the body mind is always going to fight you. Because remember, end of the day, we're mobilized. Why are we mobilized? Because we're traumatized. When you start relaxing, that part of the psyche goes, what are you, out of your mind? Why are you going to relax? This hurts, but also you're not safe. So if you relax too much and something bad happens, you're not going to be able to react to it. So relaxation has to be tolerated piece by piece. That's a big one. That's easy to forget.
Whew. That was a big one.
Morning, America. Another light morning
running from pain.
with the trio.
But I have a question because this is, I don't know, yes, it's related to pain, but I always got surprised that when the children were very small, but this could go for me too. Like if you have a bowl with candy or French fries, and I had a bowl with carrot, the French fries and the candy will go, even though
eat the French fries.
The kids know. I don't feed them, but you know, why is that? Why is that why is the human being taking the painful choices and not the easy choice from the very beginning?
Well, that's a great image you just brought up. So let me answer that. So that's a survival instinct for us. So we go after the carbs because the carbs on that level is survival. The vegetable is not going to make you. So you're up in the sugar, you're up in the carbs because the ancient mind at the back of the head is like, if I shove enough of these carbs down, right? If I enough of the sugar, I'll survive. So that to that point is not that just is more tasty, but you know, you all know when you eat a certain way and you change your diet and you eat that fries, like in 2 bites, you're like, oh, my liver, how was I eating this? It's salt, your hands swell up. So we have to train yourself. But the entrainment is survival.
But you can take with
to bring this all the way
like why do people prefer gossiping?
Because it's a quick fix. It's like the same thing as drugs, right? Like it gives you that the quick fix of like adrenaline in the moment. And gossip is the same way. Yeah, but you're not like everybody else.
Yeah.
Well, but those people feel like shit too. But this is the part of it. I mean, I remember this monk had this great thing about gossip one time. It was like they had agreed in the community not to gossip, and then nobody had anything to say. So it's also like part of it. It's an amazing story, true story. Like we agreed that this is really toxic, and of course, gossip damages everyone. But so it's also part of cultural stuff, right? These things are hardwired.
Yeah, that's how people connect with each other.
Yeah,
by talking about other people.
Yeah, so you have to, you feed yourself with French fries, you feed yourself with broccoli. It's like, it's something that has to be trained. Like some people, their bodies just can't take the French fries. But for most of us is that part. We're talking about going from survival to living. French fries, survival. Vegetables, living. Talking, really discussing what's in your heart, living. Gossiping, survival.
I like that.
This is another way, another filter to run this through. Is this what I'm doing about my survival? Part of it is inbred, ingrained, taught to us. Part of it is like living is an art form. Rumi's whole teachings, Hafiz's teachings, these were like art forms offered. How do you live, not how do you survive? And you can survive on $1 billion or live on $40,000 and vice versa. Okay. So this is the thing that's really important.
So there's a couple of more podcast themes right there. Survival to living, tolerate ease. But we unfortunately we're out of time. So Louise, do you want to recap and then we'll say goodbye?
No,
Louise is the expert in recaps.
But first of all, we would like to say thank you, Abdi, for joining. I think this is so exciting. Well, we've been discussing the second part of running from pain. I guess it will become more parts. It's a long journey. But we discussed a little bit about the physical pain, the emotional pain, and how we could increase our conscious awareness as a key to be and embrace the pain and don't be so fearful of
Mm.
staying with the pain, because it's the only way of healing ourselves, both emotionally and I guess also physically, right, Abdi? Or how would you say?
Well said. I mean, that's it. Yeah. As Buddha said,
Yeah,
be here
be here
now,
now.
mofos. Be
Be
here
here
now.
now. And I think Abdi just said that living is an art. I think.
Yeah, exactly.
Thank you for that one.
That's another theme. I'm writing it down. Living is an art.
And we're not
All
taught
right.
it. It's something that has to be self-taught. So
Yeah,
good
we're
luck
not
to the
taught it.
soccer practice. Good luck to the kids. And I go start my day. I send you so much
Yeah.
love. Always lovely connecting with you too and
Thank you so
sharing some
much.
truth with
Yeah.
each other.
Thank
learning
you
from
so
each other.
much.
It's all my
Bye.
pleasure.
Hej då.
Thank you so much. Bye.
Hey, do.